Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop, and today we're working on the third installment of the medicine cabinet. Oh, it's actually looking like something. Let's dive in. Last time we left this project, we had just assembled it and finished most of the joinery around the outside. Today we're going to be doing a lot of the internal joinery and some of the mechanisms coming together. So first thing we have to do is actually take it apart. And that's one of the fun things with carcasses. Often you put them together and take them apart and put them together and take them apart and put them together and take them apart. And you get really good at it. The first thing we're going to do is cut a groove into the two sides. This will be for the back to fit into. This is a through groove that will go all the way out, so it will actually show on the bottom and the top, but in this case those won't be seen. And also it will kind of hide into the dovetail that will be sticking out the top. Now this way the groove coming in from the side on the pins board will be hidden by the tails, so if you're looking at the side of the cabinet you won't see it at all. The next thing we need to add are all of these screw holes for the pins and the shelves. So I'm going to use a marking gauge to mark in 1.5 inches from the front and 1.5 inches from the back plate. I'm going to start 4 inches up from the bottom and use dividers to mark every 1.5 inches up from the top. And my initial thought was that doing this on one line would allow me to lay out a stick that I could then mark all of the others. Then I thought, how accurate is it actually to mark these out? And so I ended up laying one out with the dividers, and then I came back through and I laid out the other one with the dividers, and I found out they were really close to accurate. To drill the holes, I want to make sure that they fit, and so I'm playing with a couple different bit sizes to make sure I get a really nice tight fit. That was a little bit wobbly, so I stepped down one more. I also put on this adapter so that I know exactly how far down to go. And we can make sure that we don't take them too deep. I don't want them coming out the other side, but I want them deep enough so that they work down in there, and these hold in very, very nicely. So we can go along all those lines and drill them all out. Luke, don't show that. Turn it. Oh, don't show that. Yeah, that's what we're using right there. Cranky, 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 cranky. Of course, I do all my holes with bit and brace. Why would I do anything else? I don't know what you're talking about. Luke, don't show that. Gotta get a new cameraman. The next thing I need to work on is the French cleat that this will hang on. One French cleat is actually mounted inside of the box, so the whole carcass is connected to it. And then the other one will get mounted to the wall, so it makes it much easier to hang this whole thing on there. A lot easier to pick it up and set it on rather than bolting it into the wall. You can put the French cleat on the wall and bolt that in, and then connect this and just hang it. Really, really simple system. For all of the tools on the tool wall, I did a French cleat, but I didn't put them at 45 degrees. I put them at something around a 20 to 30 degree angle. On this one, I want to do it actually at a 45 degree. And hey, I've got a pattern maker's vise. So I can set the pattern maker at 45 degrees and plane it flat. And on first test, it came out perfect. I love this pattern maker's vise. That's so nice. We're going to use that French cleat. I want to lay it out on the pins board that will be right next to. I want to make sure that the distance from shoulders on the French cleat is exactly the same as the distance on the pins board, because we're going to create a little tenon in either end of this French cleat that will go into the body, the structure of the carcass. That way it is registered well, and everything will be hanging on this. So gravity will hold it together, but this tenon will just add a little bit more support, and we'll glue that in as well. Creating a little tenon on there, make sure everything is nice and clean, and I want to make sure the distance from shoulder to shoulder is exactly the same as the board this will be next to, so that there isn't any gap and it's not pushing anything apart. So now we can lay out and cut the mortise that tenon will fit into. Now you'll notice there is no groove on the back of this side plate like we put in earlier. I put the groove in one, so I'm going to do one of them where the mortise will go in before the groove, and the other one the groove goes in before the mortise. I want to see which one is better, and I found out that it really doesn't matter. Actually, both worked out very, very well. Once we do the layout, it's a simple mortise. Chop in, cut out. I'm not going very deep with this. It only goes in about 1/4 inch, so I can set up my depth gauge to see how long that tenon is and just chop until this goes down in there. So there's really no reason to bore it out or auger it. It goes very, very quickly. I want to make sure there's a nice, tight, clean fit. And you can see how this will go into the sidewall. It will connect into both sidewalls, and that's how the whole carcass hangs on the wall from that point. Had a little bit of junk left in there, so I needed to clean it up before tapping it down, and still need a little more. It's kind of one of those times where sometimes it goes right, and sometimes, just need to work on it a bit more. The top shelf on this will also get an outlet put into it, so we need to cut a hole. This is a drywall insert outlet, and I'm going to be putting the same thing into the wooden board here. So in this case, we're cutting a mortise for an electrical outlet. And pretty straightforward. It's a rectangle, measured the outlet, and then we can put it on there. Set up the marking gauges and have one marking gauge coming from one side, the other coming from the other side. Mark out the exact width, just like it's a tenon, and cut it out. In this case, I decided to bore out the corner of the holes because it's going all the way through. I just used a smaller bit to come in, and I thought, I'm going to come in with a turning and cut all the way from corner to corner. And I thought, that's pretty simple. I want to have more fun, and I love chopping wood. So I'm actually going to chop this out just like I would a mortise, because why not? So I ended up boring a bunch of holes at one end and a bunch of holes at the other end, and then we can come back in and bust out in between. And I actually really enjoyed this. It took longer. It was more work, but I enjoy this, especially these curls, because that's just a lot of fun. Also, this is Melody. She is my new social media manager. So some of the things you're going to be seeing on Instagram and Twitter and some of the other places, that'll be Melody. So I'm teaching her and letting her learn along with. So she is the newest employee of Wood by Wright. You'll also see her doing some of the videos for shorts and other things. So give her some tips, and who knows what she'll be doing in the future. Once we get close to this, we can bust this out, and that was so much fun. I don't know why. I really love making big chops and big curls, and it's very, very pleasing, and that's the whole reason I do things. I want to have fun in the shop. And if you're not having fun in the shop, then you're doing something wrong. Even if you're doing this professionally, there's times where it just needs to be done quicker and more efficiently, but there's times when you really want to have fun, and most everyone here is a hobbyist. Next thing I need to do is make the back on this. So I'm going to use my 2 pinch rods here to measure how tall the back needs to be and how wide the back needs to be. Originally, I was going to resaw and glue up some panels, and I thought, we'll do some shiplap on here. And I thought, you know what? This is a utilitarian cabinet. We're going to just do it correctly, and that is some faced Luan with oak. I know, it's just faced Luan. But honestly, it works great. It makes a fantastic back. It is easy to work with. It is relatively stable when held in the grooves. It's just a nice choice for the back, and it will do very, very nicely for this. So that goes very nicely because it fits right into that 1/4-inch groove. We're going to get ready for the glue up, but that means I need to make sure everything on the inside of this is nice and smooth and clean and ready for finish, because after that, I'm not going to be able to plane up tight to the corners. I want to actually get it all nice and finished before the glue up. I'm going to be using regular wood glue for this because I've got time to do that. I have the chance to set this aside and work on it a little bit later. So there's no reason for me to speed through it and add epoxy or something else. I normally use either hide glue or epoxy, or in this case a PVA. And the PVA of my choice is Elmer Wood Glue Max. I really love this stuff. It is a fantastic glue, and it is one of the best in the glue test I've done. If you want to see that, I have a whole video on, I have a whole bunch of videos on testing glue. It's one of my fun things. I love doing fun tests like that. So let's wiggle this all thing together and clamp it up because it's actually starting to look like something. And that's one of the fun things about the Carcass stage is you go from rough lumber to actual something. And then everything after that's little details. But we want to put clamps on each of the joints, top and bottom. And then we want to make sure that this thing is actually square, because it can be clamped and be a parallelogram. And we don't want a parallelogram. We want a rectangle. So I'm going to use a pinch rod to go from corner to corner and see where that's at. And then go to the other corner to corner and see where that's at. And then the sides that are long, I'm actually going to come back through and put a clamp corner to corner on there. And that will draw it back in and bring it back into square. And once I make sure that actually fits both directions, have that same amount, a little bit of slap, then we head and set it aside and come back to it later. After that, we can take it apart because we want to start working on some of the other pieces that are going to go on the top of this. This will be the top face that the light is attached to. It'll actually get hinged on the top, and it'll have one hole in the top center for the light to mount to. But I want to make sure it fits on here and is exactly the right measurements on this. I want to actually be able to attach hinges on top and trim everything out. So once I get it roughly to shape, I can cut it then to the exact length. It will be ever so slightly narrower than the Carcass is because I'm going to come back and actually trim this Carcass back. You can see the sides were rough. Those will all get planed before finish. So there's going to be 1/100 of an inch taken off either side. So I want to make this about 2/100 of an inch shorter than this. I also want to make sure that it sits flat on this. When I put it on the first time, it actually wobbled a little bit, so I had to do a little bit of planing to the face that this plate will sit up against. So you can see how this will come flush with the front of the two sides, and then actually finish out this box to make a full rectangle. I'm going to clamp it in place and then plane the top smooth to plane these two pieces together. I want to make sure I'm going with the grain and get them all nice and clean and ready for finish, because we're going to be putting these hinges in here. For marking out the hinges, I'm going to mark the front and back and then the exact width of the hinge, and then we can actually lay out where these are going to be. Sometimes I'll put these down with double-sided tape, and I'll put the double-sided tape down, set the hinge on top of it, and that allows me to trace around it very nicely. But for something small like this, I'm actually just going to use a square to trace out where they are. I'm going to come in and detail the edges with a chisel, and then I'll take out the majority of the waste with a router plane. I could use a hinge butt mortiser. I do have one of those. But in this case, there's a lot of surface area around here, and it works very, very well to use the router plane. The problem with it is that the grain on this was diving, and so I could only go from one direction to the other without causing a lot of tear out with the router plane. So I ended up actually doing most of the work with the router plane, and then the detail at the end, I just came in and trimmed those up with a chisel. This isn't a very deep one. The hinge on this is really, really thin, so it didn't need to be anything massive, and I don't need to be crazy detailed on it because the hinge will be covering up most of it. Once everything has been cleared out and I know the hinges fit, then we can lay out where the screws will go. And so I'm going to use a punch to actually mark them, and then come in with the demon-possessed yellow brace and drill out the holes. I could do it with anything else, but honestly, I just wanted to get through this. The last step we need to do on this particular step of steps is to make a shelf. We're going to make movable shelves. So the carcass itself is basically done. The shelves, the pins go into the holes that we drilled. Now we need to actually create a shelf that goes on there. So I can mark out exactly how wide the cabinet is with pinch rods and cut the board down to that. Then we can shoot the edges, get them nice and clean, and then I can test it, make sure it's actually going to fit in there. And in this case, it fit in the middle, but it got tight at the bottom and the top because there's an ever so slight bow to this cabinet. And so I could come back through and adjust the cabinet a little bit. But in this case, I'm actually just going to trim it up one or two shavings on the shooting board, and that does it perfectly. Also, originally I cut these a little bit wider because I wasn't going to have a back on this. Then decided to put a back on it, and so that means I need to trim off about 3/8 of an inch. So, yeah, yay! We're going to chamfer everything, make sure it's nice and clean, because these are going to be basically independent items. They're not attached to anything. So we're going to make sure there's a nice chamfer on all edges so that they feel good, they come in and out nicely. Then we can take it for a test drive. Put the pins in, make sure they go in all the way. I like them nice and tight so they don't accidentally fall out, and want them to go in with a pair of pliers. Then set it on there, and just like that, we've got a shelf. Really like how this is coming out, and I have some more detail work to do on this, but eventually we're going to have a medicine cabinet. So there you have it. This is all coming together. Next time we're going to actually make the frame and do some of the mechanical mountings and do a lot of the final details on this. So we might get it done next time, but probably this one plus then the finish and hanging, and there's still a lot to do. But the carcass is done. So all of these shelves are designed so I can move them up and down. And for those of you wondering, yes, this will be hinged so that you can get to the electronics inside. Gravity will hold it closed, but also the cabinet door, when it's closed, holds that on as well. So this will also give us the opportunity to run the electrical in through here that will connect to the mirror, and then electrical panel on here so that we can actually plug in the razor and toothbrush and things like that in the cabinet. So I'm really liking this as coming out, and it'll have plenty of space. The top shelf will be for me, and all the rest of it will be for my wife. So yes, medicine cabinet, having a lot of fun with this. And if you want to see, I do have the whole playlist on this, as well as once it all comes out, I'll have a whole put through all in one video. So stay tuned for that. This particular step had a lot of the odd mechanical things, so if you have any questions on that, then throw those in the comments down below. I do read through all of them, answer as many of them as I can get to, so thank you. Honestly, that helps out the channel though. Anytime you hit like, comment, share, subscribe, you know all those things, they do help out the channel. They help us get in front of more people, they help the algorithm, and it's a great way to say thank you. As well as you can hit that thank you button and go even farther, because all of those names over there, those are patrons on Patreon. And without patrons or members on the channel, people who click the thank you button, you guys make this happen. You allow me to put out content regularly. So if you like that and would like to help out more with that, then think about becoming a patron or a member. And I think that'll do it for now. Until next time, have a wonderful day. I'm not quite done with the project, but I think I'm done talking about the project. So we can shelve this topic for now.